they're at home, they're lonely. The talk radio station's their only friend.
Yeah.
And they're just saying some shit. And I would like, because obviously you have a dump button with a delay. So there was one dude that turned on me during the call. Like, he thought I was taking the piss out of him. And he called me a cunt or something, or he threatened me. So I had to fucking dump. I was just going, shit, this is weird.
I was going to say, you get some characters in a good way as well.
I had
those
mates ringing up, coming out of clubs at 3:30 in the morning, and I'm going, oh, this is 5AA, boys. I'm like, oh,
yeah, like, I want my job. Don't tell me you know. Like, don't say on air, like, you're coming down tomorrow or something like that. Like, no, that'd be good. But yeah, Ben Hurst to the podcast, episode number 3. Lovely to have you on. Looking forward to it. So,
thanks, mate.
You've obviously been involved in businesses and things like that in the past. Where did that entrepreneurial sort of mindset come from? Because I think, going back from what I know, obviously, so playing gridiron with your son Levi, you were working for the Port Adelaide Footy Club for a while, so it wasn't always an entrepreneurial mindset, or like, where'd that all come about?
I think it started, I think back, I was selling beads in a market at the age of probably 17 in Rundle Street back in the day, but I had business cards made. I bought little invoice books. I was literally hand making beads and selling them on a stall, hiring a stall with a mate on Sundays.
Yep.
And I had a full-time job, so it was really just reflecting back on my business journey. That's kind of where it started. I was obsessed with the process and about then I started learning about margins and.
Yep.
And then I started digging a bit deeper in how to register an ABN and stuff. And we did it every Sunday for maybe 12 months, and we both worked full time. We both worked hard, but it was really just that fascination with retail and how the end consumer buys a product and why they buy a product.
Was it massively, like, did you have, I know personally, like and you said the process, like it almost feels like every time I've gone, like say now PT business, I hit the ceiling where I wanted to be. Now it's like, oh, it's a little bit boring now.
Yeah.
Like, it is purely, like, people, the generic kind of, it's about the journey sort of thing, feels very genuine though. Like, it is the most exciting when it's not there yet. And that's why you've said, like, you've bounced between a few things.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you feel like as you chase that almost that dopamine effect of, like, the thrill of, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? How do I avoid these challenges? How do I get over all of these things? That's why you've kind of found yourself into multiple businessy, entrepreneurial situations as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's never been about the money. I don't know if we made any money off of that beat thing, but it was never about that. It was fun. And then, the challenge, because I'm ADHD, I'm extroverted, I'm super hyperactive. And what you're saying, I agree with the dope. It's the rush. And then that rush, once it tapers, you go,
What's next?
What's next? How do I challenge myself and go to the next level? And then you get to the, you move out of home, and then all of a sudden you've had children, and then you go, there's risk reward when you've got a mortgage and 2 kids. That's when it's like, I need a business plan. I need a P&L. I need to talk to an accountant. I need to talk to a business advisor, because this is putting food on the table for my kids.
That's it. You start to step out of the zone, like, whereas where I'm at right now, I'm in very much this free flow. I'm like, let's start a podcast. Let's fucking start this business. Didn't work. Let's do this one. Let's throw a few grand into this. Whereas when you start to go like, all right, a few grand there might mean what happens at home sort of thing. Like, it's a big difference.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting that you still wanted to do it. You still did it. And like every business that, by the sounds of it, like you've been involved with, like, with the clothing store on Jetty Road, it was about, you build a business around something that was related to your passion still, like you love, like the hip hop scene, like you can tell obviously by like the Outcast team, nice matching M&M, and so all those sort of things, or like the barbershop, coffee, all those sort of things, it all evidently isn't monetary. Yes, we want to make money, obviously, like anyone would, but you're doing it in a way that you're enjoying and from a passion point of view as well.
I always say to people, and look, you hear it on a lot of podcasts, but if you're chasing business for the money, it's probably the wrong start to begin with, because objectively, if I was going in to make money, I'd go into tech and invest in an app. There'd be ways you could make 10, 20 X on things, and you
shift away from a passion. Though,
shift away from a passion. Yeah, could I? The early investors in Uber or Airbnb. I mean, they 10, 20, 30, 100 X. They make outrageous amounts of money. But my passion's always been I love customer service, but also hip hop, retail, streetwear. So opening a streetwear business, I mean, the backstory behind that is, as you mentioned before, I was working at Port Adelaide in the AFL. Loved it. I'm a third generation Port Adelaide supporter. Got made redundant during COVID. And you look at that objectively, complete insanity that I turned around and said, I'm going to open a bricks and mortar retail store.
During COVID?
During COVID. Like it was July. So when things got sort of messy around January, I think it started exploding.
So it'd been in the thick of it for a little bit, though.
Been in the thick of it, yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, what's COVID going to happen?
No.
You're like, no, I know exactly what the fuck's happening. I'm still going to do it. Like, yeah.
So one minute you're working at, in a job that I loved, and it was you class it as a middle management job. It was a great environment. I got paid really well, to literally sitting at home with a redundancy package that was, it's a 5-year redundancy package. Like it's a chunk of money, but it's not life-changing. It's like, okay.
And for someone like yourself, you're like, I don't want you. You said one, not monetary. Like it's not. You're like money. You could hand it in front of me. It's like, but that's not the thrill. Like you said, you're driven by the thrill. It's like, so you could land $1 million in your bank account tomorrow. You're still gonna the next day wake up and be like, where do I get this next thrill from anyway? I mean, exactly the same. Like it's boring.
Yeah.
I know. It's easy. Someone's gonna be like, well, you're fucking 23, Jordan. Like, wait till you've had 3 kids and you're 50 years old. You might have a different opinion. I'm like, anyone I've talked to that has the mindset like, and how I am similar, it's kind of like, just got to go chase that little bit of dopamine. You always, it's about the challenges that is this thing going to work or not? Anyone that I've spoken to, any of my clients, they're like, that never goes.
Yeah.
They've had that since they were 15 and it never goes.
No,
and it's
agree.
like, so, and that's why, like, why the hell does LeBron James still play basketball? He doesn't have to.
No.
He just fucking loves the thrill, like all those sort of things. Like, so you find yourself in that position. It's like that. It's almost a no-brainer for you to be like, well, now we're going to go into something and push the next challenge as well, not sit back for, whatever the money was sitting there. It's like you could have easily maybe 12 months just sat on your ass and done nothing. You're like, bang, straight in.
Yeah, I within days, I mean, that's the pros and cons of being hyperactive. It was just, I don't like sitting still. So, yes, you can go to the gym more, you can lay on the beach more, but if you're internally driven, and I call myself a serial small business entrepreneur, that you never really seems to make any money, but I love what I do, so it's fine. I sat there with this money, I had my savings account, and I had the redundancy, and I looked at it and went, I could go and get a full-time job now and just keep that money in the bank, or I could open a bricks and mortar retail store. So I rang my accountant and he just said, dude, are you joking? Like, are you actually taking the piss? It's like, this thing's ugly, like it's going to get worse.
You realise where we're at, like, yeah.
So accountants are paid to be objective spreadsheets, P&Ls, right? So I get where he was coming from. He's going, dude, this is fucking madness. Like, and I'm like, no, dude, I can make it work. And he's like, you'd want to be good because everything I'm looking at here says this is madness. So I did. He said, look, write me a business plan. I'll help you with your P&L. So I wrote it. But the problem with business plans are I can say I want to turn over $5,000 a week to break even. And I can have the best business plan in the world, and I can do my social media, I can do this, but you're just guessing. Like you open on day one, you might sell nothing. Like it's just complete guessing. But that's, to your point again, the dopamine. That's the rush, right?
Well, that's the most exciting part. You open the front door. You're like, first day, you're like, oh, I haven't seen anyone in the first 2 hours. Like, have I cocked up? Like, is this the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life? Yeah. And then before you know it, stores popping, people are coming through the doors. Did you kind of find, though, that as soon as that happened, you're like, oh, it's worked now. What next?
I reckon it kept me on my toes for nearly the whole 3 years, because it's almost like I felt like I was holding my breath every single day.
Because it's still that unknown.
The unknown. So you'd have the thing that keeps you grounded and keeps you honest in a business like that is I had a $10 day, I had a $39 day, I had a $49 day. So 8 hours, you're standing there for 8 hours and being hyperactive in 4 walls for 8 hours doing $10.
I'd be patient. I'll be like, I'm back. Yeah. You look at a clothing, you're like, I feel like they could be tilted 30 degrees, and you do it and you're like, no, let's tilt it back again. Like,
it's not healthy. It's actually really bad for your mental health. Like you go a bit crazy. So then you turn around and you might have a really good trading day. So you go, okay. But no, I must admit, the dopamine was probably there almost every day in that business.
I'd say, guys, and bricks and mortars, they're harder nowadays. Like everyone's, online software based. Those businesses are, it's not taking away from anyone that's done well with them, but they are easier. Bricks and mortar is harder because also once again, margins are very different. If you're on a software company, like it doesn't cost much relative. Like you build the product and then after that, it's pretty much just profit.
Yeah.
Whereas if you sell a t-shirt, you're like, well, I'm only making $5-10 on this t-shirt. And then so how many, like that's a challenge in itself. So the consumer comes in, pays $60-70 for a t-shirt and goes, oh shit, that's a lot of money. It costs you a lot of money to get it in the first place. You got the lights on, you got the music going, that's a challenge. That's a big challenge.
Yeah. And you're putting, I put, to open, it's all relative to people's scale of wealth and what they've got, but I put $60,000 of my own money in to open the shop. Now, in my world, in that time during a pandemic after being made redundant, that was a lot of money. That was nearly all my money. Just complete craziness, really, from people that, quite often you'll talk to, like I say, accountants or people that may be more introverted or less risk adverse. They go, that is just complete stupidity. But that was the dopamine rush. So every day I felt like I needed to, it was never about making money, but it was probably at the end of looking at the end going, at least recouping that 60 back would be nice.
Yeah.
If I make a few dollars on top of that and I've bought myself a job for 3 years and I've made connections with a whole lot of really cool human beings and had a lot of stories with a lot of customers, because I'm so customer service driven that 3-year journey, the friendships and the connections and the stories I heard, and
especially if like in the stores next door, and then you go on and then like you're involved in the barbershop that opens up only like 2 or 3 doors down as well. That would never have happened if you hadn't have grabbed it by the balls and went, oh shit, it's a bit risky, but I'm going to do it as well. But and those accountants that you're talking to, it's the same thing. It's why you just have to be so careful who you tell some of these things to as well. Like, not to knock on anyone that's taken that path, but they've school, uni, job.
Yeah.
It's a very, structured, regimented way of being like, this is what my life's going to look like. You can almost guarantee they had a mortgage as soon as they could, all those sort of things. Like they've structure. It's not, that's comfort. So as soon as you came to them with an itch of discomfort, even for them, it made their, stomach turn over.
Yeah.
But for you, like it's not a risk. Like I've got like two sides. It's the same with sacrifices. Risk and sacrifices, I see exactly the same thing. So with a sacrifice, someone says like, you have to sacrifice a lot to get what you want to get. And I'm like, well, not necessarily, because actually I'm sacrificing my being content with myself and the life that I want, and being content with the things I want to achieve, so that if I took the safe route, that's actually more of a sacrifice.
Yeah, I agree.
Then, it's people are like, well, what do you mean? That doesn't make sense. It's like, well, spending money, taking the risk, same thing again, like spending the $60,000 is less of a risk than sitting there being like, maybe I should have. That's just going to eat you alive. Totally. You'd still be sitting here going like, fuck, should I? Like, and that, I think it's people got that so mixed up, but that's that path of it's generally the comfort, regimented sort of out of school, followed the same journey as everyone else that has that approach to sacrifices and risk as well.
Yeah, and there's no, as you say, it's not criticising anyone. There is no right or wrong. I think I've through the corporate world, done a lot of personality studies, and they test everyone's psychology in every business. I mean, when I was at Port Adelaide, we did the personality testing, and it helped me understand that when you go to the finance team and you go there on a Monday morning and say, how's your weekend? The kid's good. And they don't care how your weekend was. They don't want to know about your kids. They're introverted. So they like spreadsheets.
Just tell me what you need done and get out of my skin.
Tell me what you need done and get out of my skin, right? Yeah. So I'm bouncing in, hyperactive Benny, bouncing off the walls. Hey, man, I did this, and they're rolling their eyes. And I just think, oh, fuck, that's a bit rude. Like, they actually don't want to know about me. Then we did all this personality testing.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm an extreme extrovert. I know I'm creative and I'm this, and I don't like detail, so I like creating. But when you box me into detail and spreadsheets, that's when my brain just implodes. It hates it. Whereas they're the opposite. And then it explained, you got to understand that when you go to the finance. So what it taught me is, don't be offended. Like we're all different, and that safe route, and that that's for a certain group of people. I'm the extrovert.
Well, you need both.
You need both,
like,
and that's
you can't have like, so how if you know what business you run, if you hate the spreadsheet stuff, or take a footy team or something like that, if you hate playing defense, you still need people on the offense.
Yeah.
And that's why like business, like I see like, you know, businesses, like you've got all these team members and everything as well. Like on a footy field, it's like people are playing their different roles. And if you take one away, you're pretty screwed.
Yeah.
Like, you know, especially if you really looked at it, say like a basketball team or an NFL team is probably a really good example because they're so set position. It's like wide receiver, lineman, quarterback, whatever. If you just pulled your quarterback out, you're not going to win a football game.
Yeah.
It's like, so, you know, and they're maybe, you know, you say that they're the more analytical person maybe, or they're probably more actually creative. They're the playmaker. So maybe they're the entrepreneurial mindset. And then you got the linemen, they've got the structure, regiment, protect, quarterback, nothing else. That's their job.
Yeah.
That's your financial team. That's your, you know, all these other guys that aren't in the creative roles, but without them, you can't perform your best either.
Yeah.
So like, I think and just accepting that everyone wants different things in their life. Like, I don't know, like you talk to so many people. I've probably fallen victim to trying to push people into the similar lifestyles that we enjoy and we love. Yep. And you just got to accept they don't want that.
They don't want it.
But at the same time, they got to accept, like, I don't want the normal lifestyle either. Like, taking those big risks is what I want.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't doing those things, I wouldn't be content with my life either.
You kind of, it's like you're dead inside, you know.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that, you know, that's why corporate businesses are what they are and they grow and they're very clever at what they do. The whole process of that personality testing was to teach us all internally that, you know, if you had 100 extroverts in a business, it's chaos. If you had 100 introverts, there's no creativity. It was about that merging and that balance. So it was really clever from the club to do it, but also other corporate business, because it teaches us about individual personalities, and they all, because I come bouncing in with all these, because I was head of retail and licensing, so I'm creating merch and, you know, new Guernseys and doing all that stuff, and, you know, but at some point the CFO and his team needs to go, dude, look, you know, you need to back off on the spending here or whatever.
Like we need to make money still.
Yeah, we've got to make some money, because the extrovert's just going, I'll create.
But that's it. You're not thinking, I don't give a shit about the numbers. This is the best. This is what looks the coolest. This is what people are going to like the most. And then, you know, so you got to find that middle ground, don't you, as well? And it's a similar, kind of a, you know, team full of stars. Yeah. They don't work well together. No. You're supposed to have some guys that are mid-range. That's what makes you know, that's the team that comes together and performs well then as well. And
it becomes, I found for me that that was probably one of the sharpest learning curves I had, because I was a middle manager and I still had to do reports for the board and the CFO. I couldn't just be creative. Like, it was nice to have that side, but they taught me that I had to still do some spreadsheets. I had to have a business plan for my department. So that it strained my brain, and I'd go home, you know, stressed, you know, work stress at the back of the neck, stress, like headaches and stuff, because that's the stuff that, but it also dragged me out of my comfort zone and taught me an enormous amount. So then that benefits me when I go and open another small business.
Exactly.
When you own a small business, you're cleaning the toilets, you're vacuuming the floor, you're doing a P&L, you're doing a business plan.
Early days, you are everyone.
You're doing, I'm designing, you know, I had a range called Love a Fighter. I'm designing a clothing range. Like you're cleaning the window. You're doing the whole lot. You're dealing with customer complaints. You're placing orders, all of that stuff. So when you're a small business owner, it was me, and me.
Yeah.
So,
and I guess that's regardless of what industry or business, it's going to be the same rules apply. Maybe you can step out of that. Like, if eventually maybe that same business became a chain, then you're going to have ops managers and all these other people doing that for you. But it's regardless of whatever. I'm at a similar stage at the moment. Like, I'm having to figure out, you know, tech stuff. I'm having to figure out social media stuff like marketing, ads, you know, all these different sort of things as well. I'm like, I don't want to do this forever, but you just got to eat shit and do it at the start. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, then I can handball that off to someone else later. But also at the same time, having those skills, then if you are, whatever you do then in the future, you understand the time it takes to do these things and the effort. So when you're feeling like someone's going a little bit slow, you can wind back and be like, oh shit, it used to take me a week to do that. I've done it in a day. They're actually probably doing it at a pretty good rate. Maybe I shouldn't ask them to speed it up as well. Like, it just expands your skill set for the future as well, both for leadership but also for whatever you find yourself in.
Yeah, and I find the fundamentals of, I mean, I can only really talk. I've worked in, let's say, middle management, corporate, you know, in AFL clubs, which have quite a lot of revenue and there's a lot of moving parts. But I can only really talk from a small business point of view. The fundamentals for most small businesses are all the same. Like, you've got your overheads, you've got your wages, you've got your insurance, your cost of goods. Like, it doesn't, you know, whether you're a PT, you've or a streetwear shop owner, I think the overarching fundamentals are pretty well the same.
Yeah, well, you'd kind of work yourself back, wouldn't you, from what's it going to cost me?
Yes.
What can I then charge as well? On top of that, those sort of basic sort of thing. It's like, so, you know, if you went in and, you know, you get a T-shirt, it costs you $30 to buy it, you're not going to charge $30 to sell it because, or even 35, maybe even 40, because then you go, well, you know, 35 might make me break even after lighting, rent, all these sort of things as well, but you're not there to just break even either. So you're like, well, 40, that gives me some buffer in case you have the $20 days, your $40 days. Like, it's all, and you go to a cafe, charging coffees, it's going to be exactly the same sort of thing. Those skills are just relative. So you could go, like you've done, you've walked into multiple different industries, different businesses with the same skill set. There's tweaks to it. Like, you know, if you went and bought a gym or something like that, you're going to have to learn, but, you know, potentially, I mean, you're a gym goer yourself. If you weren't, you may have to learn what does the client actually, what does the customer actually want and prefer? Because you could go in, and that's where the analytical person might go in and be like, P&L sheet, we're making money, all is good. It's like, but are the people on the gym floor happy? Because if they're not happy, they might stick around for 6 to 12 months. And then after those 6 to 12 months, you're going to be screwed because you're too numbers focused, not enough people focused as well. Like, it's just that combination of everything that makes it just it's so important.
And each industry has, so always, I mean, your example was perfect. So you obviously know a bit about it. But as far as, you know, this T-shirt was from the shop. So let's say, yes, you're right, you paid $30 wholesale. You sell it for, let's say, 60 retail. So people that don't understand it go, oh, you're ripping people off, you're doubling it. I can show, if I showed you a pie of the cost of goods, the insurance, all the things that you listed, wages, etc., you at the end of the year, you may make 5% of that. So the piece of pie, there's a little 5% slit that you may make net profit out of that T-shirt. And at the moment with the economy, you're breaking even if you're lucky at the moment. So some people think doubling things is greedy, but you look at a chain, like I don't know what an example.
Culture Kings or something like that.
Culture Kings that are preparing their own product, right? So they make a lot of their stuff offshore. They're probably paying, you know, this is just an example, but at $10 and selling it for 60. So their margins are much larger. So they might be getting, you know, 4, 5, 6x. But their marketing's enormous. Their fit outs are incredible. Look
at the people that are coming into their stores. They're paying those, you know, your Jack Harlows and, you know, all those, you know, if 50 cents in town, they're probably paying him to come to the store and that's marketing. Like, that's not going to be cheap. So people forget about that stuff as well. They go, oh, but you made $50. And it's like, no, I didn't make $50. Like, this all happened. But then also that piece of the pie, say for your case, as a small business, that piece of the pie is a part of someone else's pie that made the T-shirt in the first place.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's actually even smaller. Like, it's, you know, so of the T-shirt that maybe they, you know, cost them $5 to make, their process of having to be like, how much can we charge? $30, then goes to your process of how much can you charge? $60, to then get to the consumer as well. And people go, oh, so even worse, it's like, so it cost $5 in the first place.
Yeah, at some point it
it's
did.
Like, but it doesn't work like that. That's not the you know, world we live in, because of supply chain. You can't expect to pay $5 for a T-shirt, but demand as well. If you want $5 for a T-shirt, go to Kmart. It doesn't have an Outcast on it or M&M on it, because they had to pay for the licensing to be allowed to have these people on their T-shirts. And it's just really interesting. I think consumers aren't necessarily, we're just not aware to it.
No, and most people wouldn't know. Like, you and I are both wearing licensed, what's classed as licensed merchandise. So M&M and Outcast are actually getting a percentage. Usually the royalty for the wholesaler of this T-shirt is about 15%. So at some point, the artists that we love and we support and we listen to their music, they're actually getting a check sent to them by these companies. Which is the criticism of when you buy bootleg stuff. If you're buying an M&M T-shirt from a market that's bootleg, and so it's not genuine. M&M's getting nothing from that. So yes, it might be $25, but he's not getting anything, which is actually illegal. That's why that stuff's illegal. Now, is that going to stop anyone buying it? No, I'm sure we've all worn some bootleg stuff at some point. But genuinely, when you're buying genuine AFL merch or genuine band merch, it means the artist is actually getting it. That's why it's always more expensive.
But that's why you see, like, in you know, recently now, we've got like no car companies left in Australia because we didn't want to pay what it costs to have an Australian make it. Like same sort of thing. So you can go get your rip-off shirts in Bali or Thailand or buy them on some random website. Cool. But you're then really not doing justice to the person that deserves to make some of the money as well. Yeah. Similarly with cars, you know, like we didn't want to keep having Holden here because it was getting too expensive. It was like, if you want to be Australian made, Australian metal, whatever, anything that goes into the car is going to be more expensive than if you source from China and get a BYD or whatever it is. It's the same thing. If you're willing to pay, you're actually helping people. It was similar, you know, how Spotify came and into the scene and offering royalties back to their to the artist to some extent, in comparison to like Pirate Bay at the time. It's all Pirate Bay, we just don't, sitting there and just like download. Yeah, so that's where we talk about we've all done it before because Pirate Bay is the best for like, you know, for movies and everything. But it's the same thing. Like we just, you know, consumers don't want to pay. They'll take anything that can be cheaper and if they were in that, you know, flipped role, if they were the one that was like, hey, that's my song and you're not paying me to listen to it, they'd be annoyed. I think it's just really interesting that I don't know whether it's a human nature sort of thing. It's a selfish kind of thing. We don't want to look beyond the layers and be like, actually, this person does deserve to make some money off of this. Like if I buy a pair of Jordans, he deserves to make some money.
Yeah, and I think it takes education over time. I remember when Spotify came out, I remember saying, fuck, I will never, ever pay for music. Like, this is absurd. Like, I just thought it was the most ridiculous model. I just, you know, I'd grown up working in radio, and I just thought, why would you pay for music? But it's that education process over time. If there's one thing you couldn't take out of my life now, to be Spotify.
I was going to say, how long you had a subscription for now, you reckon? Like,
God.
I don't even realise I pay for it. Like the other day I looked and their prices went up a little bit or something.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, I'll pay for that. I've had it for like 6 years. Just completely forgot that I even pay for it. But
can't imagine. I podcast every day, music every day. And in my business, I was playing, you know, 8 or 9 hours of hip hop a day. You know, artists that I love and admired my whole life. So why shouldn't they get some money back?
Exactly,
right?
yeah. Like the impact they've had on you.
Yeah.
And their earning of that, it's their hard work. It's just interesting. Like it's almost if we can't see it in front of our faces, we don't believe it as well.
Yeah.
Because if you walked into a store and bought a shirt and didn't even buy it, you just took it, that's the wrong thing to do because it's someone else's. Like you have to pay for that. But if you download a song illegally, it doesn't matter because I don't really see it.
Yeah.
Or a movie or whatever. Like I remember those the old ads on the Blockbuster DVDs with that old junky like Tony Hawk music playing, and then you'd be like, you know, if you burn this DVD, it's illegal or whatever. It's like, but people wouldn't care because they didn't see the impact on the person in front of them.
Yep.
Whereas if you burnt that DVD in front of the person that produced that movie, you'd probably feel worse about it.
Yeah.
Whereas when we download a Pirate Bay, a movie, no one blinks an eye.
No, and I think what you're finding with because I can a bit closer to it with the clothing industry. There's a real push towards working wage tags being put on products. So, I mean, we all know the horror stories out of, you know, I don't want to pick on China, but a lot of stories out of China where families, and you know, are sleeping at the factory with their young kids to produce and working 14, 16-hour days and not being paid a living wage. I think it's called a living wage, but that's the new push now. You'll start to see more tags on things. This product's been made and the person making it's been paid a living wage. They're doing it in coffee a lot as well. Coffee beans. Is
that an Australian thing or it's more like Western sort of societies?
I think it's more of a Western thing. Australian, it's been definitely pushed because I know a guy that owns a company that supports homeless and he's pushing towards getting that certification. It's like a certification, so you would pay a fee for it. But they're certainly doing it in the coffee bean industry because a lot of people are big on ethical, you know, sourced coffee and the fact that those people are being paid living wages.
Yeah.
Because you don't want
that's good.
You don't want these people being screwed over by multi-national companies that just have this power to say we'll buy your crop. And if you don't sell it to us, you know, they find ways to put pressure on them. But
that's it. They start to buy everything around it and squish them, and then there's nothing. You know, they've just got skyscrapers around them, so they can't actually get the sun on their crops, and then it's too expensive for them to keep them alive and whatever they do it. But it's obvious that it would happen because at the same time, once again, I don't know ins and outs, but you go like farmers even in Australia, they're not making much. Like if you're a dairy farmer, how much are you actually making of that now $6 or $7 carton of milk? Probably not that much either. So if we know that it's happening locally, imagine to the extent that it's happening internationally where we are getting products that are even cheaper.
Yeah,
Like,
and
it's just
you're going to a
huge.
family that are just literally trying to stay alive and feed their children and stay. I mean, they're entrenched in poverty, and then a big corporate comes up and goes, "Well, but we'll buy your whole crop, but we're going to pay this much." They're going, "Wow, I just want to feed my children. Yeah, we'll take that deal." But the ethics and the morals
desperate
behind it, yeah, they're desperate. They sort of take it. So I think there's a really good trend towards that, and I think your generation, your age group, is almost ethical sourcing and stuff a lot more than, say, my generation or my parents' generation, where it's almost too late for my. It's like
they've done it forever. They're kind of like, yeah. It's the same with older people with phones or whatever. The same thing. They're like, nah, I can't be bothered adopting it. Like I'm 85.
Yeah.
Who cares? It's not going to change anything. Although one thing we need to fix is we need better straws still. Paper straws.
We need better straws.
I've seen actually, what was it? I reckon it was at Cream. Cream do it all right. I reckon they're like the bamboo straws or something.
Yeah.
They don't go soggy. But something like if you got nice long black sitting there for too long, they've not solved that problem.
And then you've got to use two straws, which kind of defeats the purpose of having...
Exactly. You're like, well, I can't... Even if you flip it, I can't suck out the other side because that's flopping and sogging as well. So, yeah, we'll fix that eventually.
I always find it interesting, like, let's say, those straws, for example, like, and having a part ownership in a cafe up in Harndorf. They're all nice to-dos and they're all ethical. But I can tell you as a small business owner, they all cost the business owner more money. So to your point, are people prepared to pay more? Because as small business owners, we can't just keep copying ethically sourced, doing all the right moral things and not passing that cost on to the consumer.
No.
Like there's a point where there's a breaking point where you go, we want to make the planet better and be more holistically do right by the universe. But the consumer has to pay for it. There's a cost to that. There's a cost to it.
That's why I think people are so... I know the way to do this, whatever. And it's the same, with an electric car and all those sort of things as well. It's like, well, let's break down an electric car. I'm like, okay, maybe, I don't know enough, but there's a lot out there that would say, the production of the battery in itself is not very good for the environment, but we'll measure how good it is for the environment after the battery is made. And then it's better than a diesel engine or whatever. And it's like, but, then we know, on Joe Rogan's podcast, like a couple months ago, they had that guy who went to the cobalt mines or something. Have you seen the video of this?
I've seen some footage. Yeah. It's horrendous, right?
And so that's so you've got people going electric cars, and it's like, well, really, let's huddle into that and be like, not that you really know about it, but if we dived into it a little bit, you'd realize that that's slavery. Yeah. And so, okay, environment is better, but where do you prioritize environment over ethics, morals, and things like that as well? Like these, if you could prove maybe that these sites were... Because that's supposed to be a machine-based site. And the video of it is like terrifying. They're like children on their hands and knees and mothers with their babies and whatever, hands and knees, like mining this stuff. And the dust and everything is going in their face. And yet we're out here just buying new technology, phones and everything that all comes from. And then we add to that problem even again with now we're going to start to pump out electric cars. And in every car, not just electric, you got more screens, you got more tech. And that's all coming from this. It's like, well... I don't know, it's just a balance between ethics, environment, all these sort of things as well, because it's easy for us, because once again, we don't see it. And I think that comes back to the same sort of point of paying the artist. We're not seeing those people having to mine it and slave away, so it doesn't really affect us. Yeah. But if we went on a flight and jumped over to wherever exactly that was, and we watched that, and then we went to the factory where it was made, and we saw the whole process, we would not want to buy a phone.
You don't want to buy...
You're like, I'm going to make my phone last 5+ years now, rather than people are turning over their phone every 12 months. And it was funny because I actually genuinely, like, I know, not to stand and try and be like moral high ground or anything, but after seeing that video, I was like, I would like to tighten up a little bit on trying to make my tech stuff last a bit longer. Yep. I've had a laptop for 5 years, phone for 6 years, not turning over your car every 12 months and all those sort of things. Their impacts as well. So I guess like it's people, we try and make an impact on the environment, but consumerism is just a massive way to make a big impact on the environment with really changing nothing of how we do it, I think, as well.
What do you think? I mean, I'm big on... I've got these two sides to my head on people my age and older. We call you guys young people. Yeah. And I've got a 20 and a 22-year-old. So I'm part of me is quite protective of young people because I think we bag on them too much. It's too easy to go, oh, young people.
I feel like every generation's done that.
Every generation's done it.
They're lazier than ever. They're this.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mum.
And there's a lot to, I was only talking about this with my friend this morning, that I think there's more pressure on young males than there's ever been in history. I mean, I suffer huge mental health issues and my son does as well. And it's enormous pressure on males to be perfect, look perfect, be whatever entrepreneurs do, whatever.
And one video tells you should be masculine, the next one says you should cry.
Yeah.
I'm fucking confused.
Yeah. And everyone if you don't bench press 100 kilos,
not a man.
You're not a man. And being a bit of a gym junkie, obviously you are as well. I came up in my feed, but the statistics on how many males can bench press 100 kilos is fuck all. And I swear if you looked at my feed, you'd think every man on the planet can bench 100
and they're
kilos.
all 16.
They're all 16.
Natural.
They're all natural.
Yeah. They're not, but they'll claim to be as well. Yeah. So it's distorted.
People just think that they're this generation of males. I think females have had the pressure for longer. That's just my personal view, but I think males now, I think it's the hardest it's ever been.
I think it's a bit hidden maybe with males as well. Like it's still kind of like, unless you're affected by it, you don't see it. Like, well, men are just good at being like, no, I'm not affected by it.
Yeah.
I think that just doesn't happen. It's like, well, it does.
But behind closed doors, they might be crying themselves to sleep, feeling inadequate. And, there's, you see videos of, all those sort of infamous videos of women saying, if you're not 6'2" and you're not jacked and you're not this and you're not that, I'm not dating you. Like, fucking, are you serious?
Yeah. I was born this way to start with, like my height can't change.
I'm a really good human being with a kind heart and I'll love you to death, but you're not interested because I'm not 6'2". Like, what the fuck?
I only mentioned to Ozzy in the other podcast the other day, like I was having breakfast with Dad and we were talking about success. And he was like, why isn't success just being a good person?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, fuck you, Dad. You made it too simple. Like, it's like, you bastard. Like, And I was like, it's true though. Like, it's, and he's, he's not the kind of person he's not lazy. He's a hardworking, like, he would work multiple jobs when I was younger, but he'd also encourage me to go after, like, if you want something, you go for it. You do it sport-wise, business-wise. He still does to this day. He's always like, you don't give up, you keep going. So he's not being like, oh, just be happy and da-da-da. But he's like, do that. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, success is how you treat other people as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I don't know. It's amazing because I think that in itself, if you can chase your purpose that you've talked about before, that's why, you were never chasing the money, you chase your purpose. Then you add to that, you being a good person. It's very hard to then not be pretty content with your life.
And is success for me, like I've just exited that business. I did a 3-year lease. I decided not to sign another 3-year lease. A lot of it was gut feeling, looking at the economy, just signing 3 more years. It feels like it could go pear-shaped in 6 months, and then I've got 2.5 years of a lease left that could send me bankrupt.
Yeah.
Because the objective was, do I feel like a failure because I didn't sign another 3? No, because the objective was never to make a lot of money. The objective was to open a streetwear shop, sell things that I'm passionate about, connect with a whole lot of really amazing human beings and change people's lives. I have people every day, because I live in Brighton, every day come up and say, man, I loved your shop, or here's a top I bought there, or thanks for having that shop. And that means so much more than the money to me, which sounds kind of cheesy, but like I get such a rush when people say, I loved your shop.
Yeah. That's what I think. Like, it's genuinely, it's not selfish, but like I find if you do something really nice for someone, or like I have a PT client that's very thankful or say something, and you're like, that's why I do it. Like it's not the only reason why you do it. There's so many other reasons, but you're like, this selfishly made me feel better than any money hitting my bank account, any lift I've lifted. When you lift 100 kilos, you're like, cool. You go straight to what's next.
Yeah.
But those sort of moments, where someone's like, you've had an impact on me. It's not a what's next moment. It's like, I'm going to do that again because that was fucking powerful. Like, it was really cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's, comes back to everything. Like maybe it's probably a small percentage, once again, of what we, like you mentioned, small percentage of lifters that make you think that everyone benches 100 kilos, a small percentage of the females online being like 6'2", 150,000+ a year, all those sort of things as well. It's like we probably don't realize how much, if you filtered that out a little bit, there's a lot of people that have the same sort of morals around just being a good person, making an impact and how good that will make you feel. And you're like, there's the success right there. It's right in front of you the whole time.
Yeah. So I digressed off there, but I was interested in getting your take going back to the minds you were talking about. And the young generation, and then I digress, which I tend to do.
That's what a podcast's for. It's like organic, we just go wherever.
Yeah. Like that sort of the wokeness that's happening now, but like let's say the minds, which is a serious issue. Do you feel like particularly that younger, let's say 16 to 25, they jump on a reason and then they forget a lot quicker than perhaps other generations, like Ukraine. I feel like we don't talk about Ukraine anymore.
We only care what's in the news.
We care what's in the news. So it's Black Lives Matters Black Lives Matter. So I'll black out my page, which I did, but I've been big on social conscious issues and minority groups for a long time. Not that I'm trying to blow my own horn, but like that's been a long-standing thing for me. But I find, let's say the Mayans, someone will do a post on it because it gets them
that Ukraine flag in their bio.
Ukraine flag, and then all of a sudden no one's talking about Ukraine anymore.
I think because people like to think that they're doing something that they're not really as well. Like there's people who hide behind a flag to be like, that's enough, I've made an impact.
Yeah.
It's like, actually, that's not like it's very nice. It might show that you're thoughtful sort of person. It's like, but it's not. You've not actually helped change someone's life in Ukraine. And whatever side, whoever, like, because I think it's also the challenge in that is like, it's like, well, there's innocent people on both sides. Like there's young Russian boys that shouldn't be getting harmed as well.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, they'll continue the bounce. If you followed a profile that does that, it'll keep doing that. Like it's always coming up. And I think it's but you wouldn't be able to, I don't think, ask them a deep question on what's actually occurring.
Yeah.
Like I will say I'm very naive on a lot of those social sort of matters. I'd love to know more about what's going on now, Israel, Palestine, all that. I don't know, so I can't formulate an opinion because there's a lot out there from two sort of sides. I'd love to know more. But those people that I find, like a lot of the young people that are just that, like you said, it's kind of putting into a bucket of the woke sort of thing, like whether they are or not, that's kind of the term, people will know what it means. They don't want to learn about it. Like a lot of them don't. A lot of the people I talk to, there's like, and you see them do those actions on social media. I'm like, but you actually aren't investing in learning about what's going on and where you can make a big impact either. From my own experience, I'm sure there's plenty of people that are.
Yeah.
But I find like there's a common theme. It's just it makes you feel good if you put that up.
Yeah, it just feels like this, particularly perhaps maybe since Black Lives Matter, but it feels like there's this wave of socially conscious issues that people just jump on. And I'm not like saying, I sound like I am picking on young people, but it feels like it's for likes and it's for views.
No, it is. But that's like, your generation above don't care about that. It's probably maybe a couple of years older than me at 23, maybe your 25-year-olds, the people that grew up where social media as a teenager was there from the start, that age on is the ones that really get affected by it, I think, as well. But even then, like people 30, maybe 35, probably still impacted by it, but it is the majority, I think, of the young person, because everything that they talk about at school, that person's cool because they got lots of likes. Doesn't mean they're a good person still. They could be an all right prick. Like, it doesn't mean they've done anything good for the world. They dance and shake their ass on the screen. It doesn't mean they've done anything good for the world. And that's what I think it is. It comes back to the likes, but also pressure. People feel like they have to post those things. And I think that's a challenge in itself. Like once you do one, you're like, fuck, I've got to kind of do all of them now, don't I? And it's like, whether I believe it or not, whether I know enough or not, like, that's why I said again, like I'm willing to be naive on these things in the fact that I know I'm a very open-minded person. There's always two sides. That doesn't mean that, we shouldn't be trying to help one side or whatever, but we need to listen to both sides. And that's what most people don't do. It's just like, shit, I should probably do it because my friend did it. It's like the whole follow you know, they're just sheep sort of thing. Just
they
follow along.
Yeah. And I've got friends that are Jewish and friends that are Palestinian. So I my feed is, and I've deliberately stayed out of it because I'm trying to learn from my friends. Like, I totally agree. There's always two sides to every story, and it's horrific. Like you said, there's people dying. Doesn't matter. We're all human, right?
Yeah,
there's people dying.
Innocent people, regardless of whatever.
So I watch my feed and I watch their commentary. I don't interact with it because I'm trying to learn. I actually find this particular situation in Palestine, I find it probably the most confusing one I've ever come across. I can't actually
It seems very messy on social media. And even then in the mainstream media is probably, they always take one side more than the other, I feel like.
Yeah, because the US is in bed with...
Exactly.
So like that's that media.
Which makes it challenging again because, I don't think this... I was only saying to one of my clients the other day, like it's my generation especially, due to social media massively, has opened up this ability to ask further questions though. I know it sounds ironic because we were just saying these people don't ask questions, but it's more, say, I think over the pandemic it was a big eye-opening experience for someone my age to be like, holy shit, maybe everything on the news isn't true. Maybe it's not perfect. Maybe there's some form of guidance behind that as well. And I'm not saying the mainstream media are terrible, but it's once again, it's a business and an opinion. And so they are not going to deliver, and they can't deliver every single opinion. And that's why I think it's so important to absorb from podcasts, absorb from books, or, and the news as well, maybe, to try and formulate then an opinion based on lots of knowledge, not just one mainstream, because now we have that access where we didn't have that, in the past.
And a classic example, because I'm like you, obsessed, and my son is a personal trainer as well that you're friends with, and obsessed with anything fitness knowledge. So I've probably now followed too many accounts. You can get fucking conflicting how to do a squat, how to do a deadlift. And one, the
fitness industry is terrible.
It's horrendous.
If that's the pinnacle of social media.
This is how you do it perfectly, and literally the next thing in your feed.
It's a big red cross saying,
don't do it this way.
Do it like that. And it's exactly what they
The other dude just told me to do it. And, and this diet's shit, and low carbs bullshit, and keto's crap. And it's so confusing. And my 20-year-old daughter, and this is, I'm not criticizing her at all because I totally understand. She goes to her brother and says, TikTok said, how to lose weight off your butt, right? Which, as you know, you can't just lose weight off your butt. It doesn't actually work. And the poor thing's watching TikTok videos from an influencer going, do this and do this and do that, and you lose weight off your butt. And her brother's going, let me explain to you scientifically why that doesn't make sense. And she's defending the TikToker, as she would, because she's an influencer and she follows her, she loves her, but no, she said,
that's it,
whoever, let's say Kim Kardashian, whatever, this is how you lose weight off your butt. And people like you who are trained, and my son who are trained, it's the most conflicting industry I think I've come across.
But that's what I know, being in the thick of that, and as someone that used to post heavily fitness content with those kind of things, I know how conflicting it can be. And it's because generally, in most cases, in any circumstances, it's like it depends sort of thing. That's the challenge and it's kind of why I semi-shifted away from some of the content I was posting fitness-wise as well. It's like, because the whole, let's take a squat for an example, you're built differently to me, built differently to Levi, built differently to your daughter. It's different. Like how you should squat is different to how I will squat because of the length of my femurs or, my mobility through my hips and knees and ankles and whatever. That's all going to be different. So it's actually really hard to post those things and be right anyway, even if you come with purely good intentions, because there's going to be so many different factors. But coming into it with nuance and saying, now it depends on this, doesn't get you views. Whereas if you say, this will break your legs if you do it like this, or this is the worst way to squat and you need to fix this, this will cause back pain, that'll get them views as well. So it's like the clickbait again. And that's where once the fitness industry is now just ruined by that. Like I won't specify what company, but there's this specific company, an app, fitness app, that they're, one of their trainers, she just posts videos doing an upper body workout. The camera's jacked up right under her ass. I'm like, I can't actually see what you're doing.
It's upper body workout.
It's upper body. You're training biceps, mate, and all I can see is glutes. Like it's just, it blows my mind. And the fitness industry has to be one of the worst for it. But then also, it's hard sometimes because I understand that industry. I need to also understand that what I view on social media in other things that I am not aware about probably has the same going on for it as well.
Yeah.
And I know I've fallen victim to it. You may have as well. It was like you hear something about maybe some conflict in the world or the pandemic or Woolworths and how they're not paying any tax or whatever. You go, yeah, that's bullshit. They're not paying any tax, and I'll wear that like it's my full belief system. I'm just believing some random dude on TikTok, and so like I think we need to understand outside of our knowledge, it's going to happen to us as well.
Yep.
Sometimes we just don't see it. And exactly how, your daughter was a little bit misguided by the video in an industry she's not, well equipped with, and she could go to Levi and then get that knowledge. I would go outside the fitness industry and be a little bit lost as well. And maybe you go outside of some industries or, some topics and you're lost as well, which is a challenge.
And I know Levi used to tell me that it was exhausting for you. Like, you did some amazing content, and I followed you closely, but you do a bicep post and some fucking hater goes, bro, you haven't even fucking, you never got biceps. It's
That's
like,
it.
what? So much hate in the industry.
I know.
It's like, why
Just scroll.
It's, having worked in the AFL industry, an amazing football coach, do they have to have played 300 games and won a Brownlow? Not at all. Sometimes they're not good coaches at all. But if the low-profile guy like, Craig McRae probably at Collingwood won a flag, I mean, was he a high-profile player? No, but like, he's built an incredible team of young men through connection and empathy and care and love.
Yeah.
And
Do you think Usain Bolt's coach was faster than him?
Yeah, like...
It's not possible. Literally, it's
That's
genuinely impossible.
example,
I say
right?
every time when, I would say that to people all the time. And I'm like, I like to always make the joke. I'm like, I'm fairly strong for a skinny guy or whatever. But it's like, still relative. Again, I'll go online and see someone that's still lighter than me, lift heavier than me. You also don't know. Like, it's the funny joke everyone always goes, oh, if he's stronger than me or bigger than me, he's probably on steroids.
Yeah,
You're just kind of out, no, you're too strong, you're on steroids. It's like, we may or may not be. Like, it's... But it's hard. Like, I know at first posting the content, it affected me a lot. But then I was kind of like, nah, I don't really give a shit. Because there was so many people also at the same time being like, awesome post, thank you. And they've messaged me. And I think it's that hard thing is like, you don't want to take in the good too much because then you take in the bad as well.
Yeah.
But, you should probably also be open to constructive criticism. And that's where you need to like sieve out depending on what if someone's saying this is shit, you're small, it's like, well, that's not constructive criticism.
No.
Whereas if someone was like, have you ever thought about that maybe because of this, I'll read that, I'll reply to that because that's constructive.
Yep.
It's not an attack.
Yeah.
It's not to fuel their ego. It's like any bully. It's just insecurity themselves.
Yeah.
Any bully at school, whatever. It's always like if you really sat down and opened a bully up, they'd be like, yeah, I actually really don't like myself, to be honest. Or they'll be like, this,
insecure,
this happened to me when I was younger and that's why I'm like this. And it's a shame though.
I find it, I mean, obviously fitness is close to my heart, and, and obviously knowing you and having my son, I mean, he's got me to, I remember saying to him maybe 6 months ago, oh mate, I haven't done any more on my bench. It's been stuck on the same amount for 25 years. And he goes, yeah, Dad, you've been lifting the same weight, the same amount of weeks for the same reps for 25 years.
You've never tried that one little bit.
He's gone, why would you expect it to increase? I'm like, because I'm doing lots of volume, the old Ronnie Coleman, just volume. And he goes, but if there's no progressive overload. And I'm like, I'm
just put an extra
52 and
1.25
what the
on.
fuck's what's progressive overload mean? I literally had no idea what the words together even meant.
But now look, like you're getting strong as.
Yeah,
I've seen some of the stuff Levi's sharing. Like,
so there's a 19-year-old who's my son who, I think there's the ego of, no, I'm the dad, I know more, and I'm stronger. So, but then he progressive overload, and then he gave me an actual strength program, and I was so proud of him. They're like, he allowed me to get, I mean, the numbers don't matter because it's like I'm a runner as well. How fast you run is up.
It's more of it.
It's so individual.
Do I feel like I'm improving rather than have I hit X?
Yeah. So he got me to increase significantly in a 3-month period purely on this program because I actually stopped and actually listened to him and forgot all the misinformation I call it the Ronnie Coleman era because it was 7 days a week. It was.
And the dude's injecting all sorts as well. Like,
he's
look
cooked.
at us. He would have been an absolute fridge in the first place. Yeah. But you don't get that big without it. And that's, once again, so then you listen to the guys on social media. People will listen. Once again, coming back to the whole, like, your coach doesn't have to necessarily be
that was the point
perfect. Is that just because you're the biggest doesn't mean you're the smartest coach. No. Just because you're the strongest doesn't mean you're the best, or to coach the person to be a powerlifter. Like, I think he's like Thor, the powerlifter who, I mean, he's now the second strongest ever because Eddie Hall put like a kilo on or something. I'm fairly sure that wasn't a legal meat either. So we'll claim Thor's the best. But his coaches at the time was Sebastian Ora, Australian strength coach from Sydney. The dude's strong as. He's very strong.
But he's
not Thor strong.
No.
And look where he got him to. So
Yeah.
like it just shows like it's, obviously he's not cop and hate because he's still like benching 200 plus kilos or deadlifting 400 kilos himself. So he'll be fine. But what's to say, had he not, like, I feel like there's an element of it really helps to have trained or, trained hard in that sort of field. Same if you, anything business related, same again. Like if you've never run a business, it would probably be helped to, get trained on running a business before you run up.
Yeah.
It's probably a good idea. Same thing as coaching. If you don't know what the athlete's going through, it's going to be really challenging to, fizzle and work your way around like the challenges they go through. I know personally, like as a jav thrower, my coach was a very high level discus thrower. So he wasn't a javelin thrower, but he knows the challenges of an athlete.
Yeah.
He knows like when you're having an off day, all right, scrap you're not throwing, we're doing technique stuff. We're just doing some med ball, we're doing some sprints, we're doing some plyos. A coach that hasn't experienced like the challenge, like even in a different sport, like football or something like that, you can just grind your way through. It's like, I can tell you now, you can't, it's very hard to grind your way through throwing a stick.
Yeah.
Sounds silly, but like it's because the harder you try, the more you tense up, the worse it gets. So that's a different approach. So it's like you kind of need to have, you still need experience, but it doesn't mean you have to be the best to do it either. And walking the walk helps still.
And that's, back to the point of Levi, like at the time, he was lifting significantly less than me. So a lot younger than me, lifting less than me.
My son,
ego, dad's stronger. Shut my mouth, listen to him, and he's got me to levels I never dreamed of getting, just purely based on the knowledge. Obviously, you're Cert 4 trained, so you guys have studied it. So why wouldn't I have listened to him in the first place?
Well, that's it. And especially Levi, like I know he doesn't just, like the PT qualification itself is not rocket science necessarily, but he's very invested in
technique.
Learning more as well. Like he's always,
Yeah.
he wants to learn more. And that's where, once again, he's now, like he was, I know, talking to him for a while, like he was struggling with like direction of what he wanted to do. He's now found something that just lights him up.
Yeah.
So it's easier for him to research more, and practice more, learn more so that he can help more people and make a bigger impact, which inherently is, helps him as well, have a purpose. And especially as a bloke, like it's, like you said, in a world that blokes are pretty lost at the moment. And I, luckily for myself, I'll find a purpose and something I want to work towards, but it's hard. Like it's, if you haven't found that then allows you to elevate to learn more. Yeah.
And there is that, I talk about that with myself, there's almost a selfishness to it as well, but that kind of opening businesses, there's definitely a selfishness to that.
Yeah.
And be denying, I think, small business owners is that there's ego attached to most things generally. Opening a streetwear shop.
It's cool to tell people as well.
Just sells a lot of hip hop stuff. Like, I'm not embarrassed to say that, right?
No.
That's I feel like that gives me, whatever you want to call it, street cred, or it's good for the ego. But the flip side of that is watching someone's face, getting that feedback from clients. I had customers coming in hugging me, crying, that had mental health issues that I'd formed really strong connections with over the years as a young lad. He was pretty cooked, like he was getting locked up and he was addicted to drugs, and his mum used to bring him in, and I just sort of indirectly mentored him and just sort of took him under my wing as a bit of a father figure. And his parents came in and thanked me, and he's on the straight and narrow. He's on a methadone program, and he's got a job, and he's just a great kid. But you could just tell he had a big heart, and he was just misguided. And he just needed a bit of love. He was a bit lost, and he was just a young man. And I connected with some of that, and I went, dude, look. And he just, every time he came in, he just hugged me, like, and we just formed this, which you normally hug a lot of your customers, right? But that's
especially a young bloke. How do you get him to do that?
Yeah, a big 6'5", strong lad, and he's a pretty tough dude. But
everyone's got emotions still, don't they? Like it's regardless of what they've been through or what they're going through.
And that's the small business side of. Was I driven by making money? No, that type of connection, that's the day. Like for you as a personal trainer, you go, wow, I've actually impacted someone's life in a positive way. That means a lot, Yeah,
and it's not, but you're not doing that out of deliberately even wanting that response either. You're doing it and you're like, like it's still to this day. So we say it's selfish. You say it makes you feel really good, but I don't go today. I'm going to deliberately do something because that's going to make.
Hell no,
that's
no.
the selflessness part of it. You're doing it just because you're a good human.
Yeah, if it's disingenuous, it's kind of like
that hug would be very stiff. You'd be like, get off me, like.
Yeah, but we still DM each other now. I think he'd be, I'd be 22, 23 now. We flick each other the odd DM just to, I check in on him to see he's okay. If I haven't heard from him, if I haven't heard from him for a while, I worry that he's maybe drifted off again, and I'll just say, "You're a good man. Like, you need to chat," And you go, that's just come about from opening a streetwear shop, and that's just one example. But there's probably 100 of them over 3 years where you form connections with people.
Yeah, that's what I think is what hounding on young males, but it's so important because it's very prevalent at the moment. The challenges that I think young blokes, I see it in my friends, I saw it in myself for a while as well. Like it's, you can't say enough. Like just keep looking for like kind of, deep down we all know what kind of makes us tick a little bit. Sometimes you got to do some things that you hate, and you realize that wasn't it, and you go to the next thing. Like it's so someone like that that's feeling lost or whatever. It's like just go get any job to start with, do anything. Figure out that you might be surprised, you might really love it, and if you don't, then it's because that you gotta, as much as you can't rely on everyone to work that out for you. So like he was the guy you had come into the store. He still had to come into the store and talk to you and want to build those. If he didn't take that step and be like, I'm going to come in and, I know it's not Ben's job, but, I just enjoy being around him. So I'm going to come in and then that wouldn't have happened for him either. Like it's just pushing, keep trying. Things aren't going to go well, but then the next one might. Like eventually you're going to land it and be like, that's the purpose. Yeah. That's, okay, I'm going to do this now.
Yeah, and I put that on the back of the Love a Fighter label. On the back of the swing tag, I had "Find Your Purpose," which probably at the time it felt right. Now I feel like it's maybe, I don't know if it's overused, but I feel like it feels cliche now, but I still believe it.
Yeah.
Like
most of those cliches are pretty right.
There's some truth behind them. Yeah. But then they probably, through social media, maybe they get overused. I don't know. But
yeah. But that's it. Like you wish more blokes like found that maybe as well. I think that's the challenge. I said to Aussie the other day, it was like, no matter what job you do, put your head down and do it properly. Makes it more enjoyable instantly. Yeah. You'll be surprised that maybe, you're like, oh, life's pretty shit, just hate my job. I'm like, where can you make it more enjoyable? Or if you hate it that much, let's look for something else. Yeah. Like if it's really tearing you down that much, like once again, you've made the comment, like if, you've got a young family, that's a little bit harder in itself. But if you're 23, maybe you are or aren't living at home or whatever, and you no kids, no nothing, no partner. Best time, take the risk.
Yeah,
see what happens. You can always come back to that job. If you were good, they'll let you back in.
Yeah,
I did that. I left the warehouse job. COVID came, gym shut down. Had to leave the first gym I went to, so I went back to the warehouse. But because I put in the effort and I was a good worker at the time, they're like, come back in, no worries.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to have to do that, but that's what. Chasing after things, sometimes they might happen. That's like,
yeah, and that's, mate, I've gone from owning 3 small businesses, and in 12 weeks, virtually like 2 of them I'm not a part of, and one I'm sort of very passive in, which is quite a humbling experience. But like not being motivated by money, it probably helps. So now I've re-entered hospitality. So a cafe at Creek called Cream, if anyone's a local. Worked there for 10 or 12 weeks. Loved it. Josh just said, come down and do some hours for me. Part of it was quite humbling at 52 to be front of house, not that there's anything wrong with it because I love hospitality, but it was like the humbling part was customers coming in because my shop was 4 doors away going, oh, dude, you're working here now. And yeah, I'm working here occasionally. I'm loving it. And they're like,
well, they start to be like, oh, did you buy the place or something? You're like, no, I'm just,
you're involved.
just
no, like,
here. I'm just,
yeah. This is my reality at the moment. I'm applying for full-time management positions on Seek. But at the moment, I want to work in hospo because I love the energy of hospo.
But being content with that as the decision as well. Like,
yeah,
yes, you're looking for something else to come, but you're not like, oh, this is a grind. I have to do this every day to get to this. You're like, no, fuck it. I like it. You like people. You like, coffee, especially a coffee shop. That's the easiest way to make someone's day.
Yeah,
coffee with a smile.
100%.
I always say, like the amount. If you walk into a coffee shop and they're not smiling, coffee tastes shit.
Yeah,
you've ruined my day. Thanks for that. Like
it's
you're starting people's day.
It's funny because I had this very conversation this morning with my business partner at Pot, the cafe in Hahndorf, about how I'm loving being, because I'm working at In Thai restaurant, which is another 4 doors away on Jetty Road, Brighton at the moment, and how much hospitality allows you to literally, to your point, make someone's day.
Yeah.
You know, you get widows coming in, sitting, having a coffee on their own, you know, who might have lost their partner recently. And that's the highlight of their day.
So if you don't hit them with a smile or even if they hit you, they give you absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
They're still going to be on the inside feeling pretty warm because of what you did to them. Like if you walk up to that widow and you're like, hey, how can I help you? What do you want today? Or whatever. And they're like, I'll just have a coffee, please. Yeah. But you keep that energy. You never know the next conversation they might have. They're like, I was a bit of a prick to him. You know, he was pretty nice. He made me feel pretty good. Maybe I'm going to do that to the next person. It's that pay it forward sort of thing. It just recycles itself. But regardless of what they do with that, you know, you've done what you can to try and make an impact on that person on a micro scale as well.
And that's what the humbling part of it initially is now turned into, well, I'm back to changing people's lives, which sounds really dramatic, but sometimes like a smile or a how's your day, are you okay, whatever. I mean, you don't go deep on someone you've just met necessarily, but sometimes people say, no, man, I'm really struggling. Or you might end up having a conversation with a person. You might make their day. They might, you know, you see it, you see stories about this. They may have been suicidal. They may have been going to drive off a bridge and you've told them that their hair looks amazing, or you love their M&M T-shirt.
That's enough.
Dude, man, you're looking fit at the moment. You go, well, maybe things are okay. Sometimes it can be...
And they're kind of like, well, fuck you for making me feel good. Like, I was content on this decision, and now you've changed it.
I've read stories about it. I mean, just one comment from one person in a cafe or a business that could just literally change that young person's life. Well, it doesn't have to be a young person, but... So I'm really mindful of that, how you can actually, in fact, through customer service, you can really change someone's...
Actually, it was... maybe this morning or last night, Jimmy Carr posted a video of a podcast he was on, and obviously being, you know, Jimmy, the comedian. Oh, yeah. He's got the really backwards laugh where he sucks in terror. And he said, like, so one of his shows he did, he always does, like, you can text in. And so some text in some comment or something, so it's kind of like a virtual heckle as such. And I don't know whether he brings it up in the show or whether he's actually on there heckling with them on the text, like they choose some. And a lady was like, I'm coming to your show tonight to celebrate my 15 bonus years. He's like, 15 fucking bonus? What's this woman on? So he replied to her, like, what do you mean by 15 bonus years? She was like, when I was 15 years old, I had the rope hanging from the ceiling in my bedroom, and I was ready to knock it off. I was waiting for mum and dad to go to bed. Opened up my phone, scrolled Instagram. I laughed at one of your videos.
Wow.
Kept scrolling, kept laughing. So I've had 15 bonus years since.
That's wild.
I was like, holy fuck. Like, he didn't even know. Like, he was like, but once again, what he puts out into the world is funny. He's comedy. I mean, he makes people laugh and smile. Like, yes, he says things maybe, you know, you can't say on the street. That's the whole idea of a comic and a comedian at the end of the day. They're pushing boundaries. They're challenging things, but he saved a life. It just, the power of smiling and, you know, so what you could do, and he didn't even mean to. But I think that's the thing. Like, you, by being that sort of person, you don't mean to, but you just keep doing it. Like, you're always that, you know, you don't have to always be the upbeat. Like, I'm not a big upbeat sort of person, but I'm always going to be nice to someone. I'm always going to be positive, even if you're not nice to me. Yeah. That's just how I've been brought up. My parents brought me up that way, and I'll never change. If someone would be like, you know, you should probably like stick up for yourself. No, that's okay. I'm content. If someone wants to make a comment about you're skinny, why should I follow you for squat advice? I'm like, okay, no problem. Someone else will.
And I think conversely, and the one thing I've probably, as I've got older and matured more, you know, I was a smart aleck as a kid, and, you know, probably covering up a lot of insecurities, like, again, a lot of young males, right? That had a pretty rough sort of emotional upbringing, I guess, and exposed to a lot of domestic violence from my mum and stuff. So I used to, the shield was the clown, the class clown, the piss take, and
that's very standard.
You know, pretty standard, right? You know, like laugh. And my teachers go, "If it's a fair bit of trauma, why are you so upbeat?" But it's just a mask. And now I'm realizing, you know, the smart ass comments, or the, you know, really looking back on it, bullying comments at school that I thought were funny to maybe another guy or a female or something, and you realise that you can make 100, like if I can hear 100 positive comments in a week, what's the one thing I'll remember? The one dude that said something negative.
Exactly. It just lingers.
From an overthinker that suffers, you know, anxiety and depression and mental health issues. guarantee you the one thing at 3 a.m. that's sitting in my head, it's not the 100 comments, oh, dude, you're looking great, your hair, you're fit, whatever. It's the one person that said, oh, man, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. Like, that's the thing that'll keep me on at night.
Just shows the impact it can have. And it's like, and that's, you know, I don't know where I heard it. It was kind of like, don't think of a zebra. First thing you think of is a zebra. You can't not.
Yeah.
I've had people be like, oh, I didn't think of one. I'm like, bullshit. You fucking did. Like, don't kid yourself. And it's like, so, you know, we can't, speaking in the negative, you're not, you know, able to realize the negative and the positive as per se. So whatever you're saying, it is what it is. Like, it's not, so if you're saying I am shit, you are. Like, it's what you're putting into yourself, and the negative has much greater impact than the positive. And social media amplifies this, where, you know, in the real world, no one's going to come up to you and be like, oh, the post you did, you shouldn't be doing that because you're broke or something. But they'll say it online. And it's like, we've now amplified the amount of negatives and probably just maintained the positives, because no one says it. Some people do, but less people will post something good on social media about what you've posted or your product, your service or whatever. It's like Google reviews.
Yeah.
There's a reason that Google reviews are so skewed, is because if I enjoyed going to your clothing store, I'm probably actually not going to leave a review. If you told me I was a fucking prick when I walked in, I might leave a review. You know, I'm going to go to town on you. It's just a weird concept. But it just shows the impact of positive self-talk, positive talk to other people as well, and how much you can change someone's life.
And how that affects, especially, again, to young people. If a young female posted a photo of herself that was beautifully curated and they look amazing, if 100 people said you look gorgeous and one person said you look fucking disgusting,
they'll be like, what's up with your eyelashes? The next day they're in getting their eyelashes fixed, they're on, like, they'll ignore everything else as well. So you said, like, when you were younger, struggled with that, you know, all those challenges on the alternate side, I guess. What made that, what switched it?
To become more positive, or I think I just kept, you know, single mum, 3 kids. It was just that you had to push through. Like, there was no, like I said, teachers used to say, "Why are you know, down on life and stuff?" Like, you kind of didn't have a choice in the environment I was in. I guess it was just kind of like, you know, if I wanted back in the day, you know, like a Rip Curl t-shirt, Mum had no money to buy a Rip Curl t-shirt. So it was kind of, we just had to fend for ourselves. She was a very loving and caring mum, and I adored her. It wasn't that, but it was, she'd buy stuff from the op shop clothes. So a treat for us was going to the $2 rack, not the 50-cent rack when I was growing up. Economies of scale, like, as in a long time ago. But, you know, if we wanted to go to the school social, you know, that was the $2 rack week, you know. Never resented her for it, never regretted it, never felt like I was being hard done by, but it was just, you kind of had to fend for yourself. So I kind of, that mask became probably a little bit, it's little bit less cheeky, and started to think about other people's feelings with stuff that I was saying to cover up my own insecurities. And then guess the consequences of my actions, which my kids, Sunshine and Levi, probably get sick of hearing. I'm all about accountability for your actions and not blaming the world. I think that's probably a trap that people, mindset. The victimizer. I feel like I don't know if that's a reasonably new thing with this generation.
I think we're just putting more labels on things as well, aren't we? If you act like this, that's a victim mindset, you do that. But there's big, the amount of people as well, and that's probably, to your point as well, the cards you were dealt, you know, maybe they were hard as someone else's cards. Probably better than someone else's too. Like, there's always, I don't know, like, it gets pretty hard to make this conversation as a young white male that went to a private school. I'll throw that out there. It's hard to be like, oh, you were dealt the cards, da, da, da. Like, when I'm here and, you know, I was born in Australia, I was very lucky. But, you know, I like to think at least I'm taking advantage of that. I'm not, and I'm you know, everything I've built here is myself. To some extent, obviously, with the knowledge you've gained through a younger age. But, like, so many people, it's what happened to them, and that just runs their whole life for them. They're just pulled on a lead. Like, they're a dog and their owner's tugging them along at the park. Like, they are so, and it's like, no matter how bad it is, but then at the same time, I'm like, I've seen people who have been through, like, some of the countries they've come from, like, people I've either played sport with or people I've worked with at the gym or whatever, they've come from, you know, borderline, if not third world countries to thriving. yet you have someone that, we couldn't get that, the most expensive tennis racket when I was a kid, and that made me really embarrassed. So it's kind of just ruined my future. And it's like, ruined your future? It's a fucking tennis racket. But we don't see that, because that to us is the worst problem we've ever had.
Yeah.
So for us, that's 100 out of 10, 100 out of 100. Like, that's max. But for someone that's come from, not trying to compete, but much worse, maybe like a South Africa or something like that, that's a 1.
Yeah.
Not even a 1 on their problems, because safety was a concern, or the power turns off for 4+ hours every day, and all those sort of things as well. And I think, like, you don't want to fall into the comparison rut, but like, it's maybe a lot of the things that we get upset by and let affect us, they're not actually that bad. And like that victim mindset, put that label on it, is stopping you from doing a lot of things in your life.
Yeah, and I think for me, and Levi and I have had a lot of these conversations about his upbringing, and I left the marriage, so there was a divorce, and how that impacted on him, through a whole lot of reasons. And I've always been, oh, dude, mate, you're fine. Like, it wasn't that bad. Like, my mum was beaten in front of us. We were beaten.
Yeah,
Mum was married 3 times, and we went to op shops. And then I went, hold on. I'm always researching mental health, and like, my experience isn't his experience.
No.
Him telling me that it's impacted him dramatically and it's affecting his mental health. That's what counts. This isn't I was making it about me. Like, no, dude. And then you can use the Ukraine and go, wow, these kids didn't eat, But that doesn't help my kids.
No.
Their experience is their experience. Their feelings are their feelings. So only in the last few months, I've sat down and he's really gone into detail about how and why it affected him. And I've shifted my thought. But so I've listened and have taken that on board, but I'm also big on what you project to the universe. Don't use that as...
It's like, what now?
What now, right? I'm not saying let go of it, but I'm saying that's not a reason to stop. Like...
It's that hard, fine line of being like, once again, that's your bad. That's, what's happened in your life in comparison to someone else is not necessarily relative in that moment. It's happened. What now?
Yeah.
Like, maybe someone has to say sorry, or whatever it is in all these ranges of circumstances, or, maybe something's happened to you and that person is still happy they did it. Okay. Unfortunately, this is the hardest thing. It's not going to change. You can't change what they're going to do to you. What you can change is the environment you're in, or anything like that as well. And it's like, I remember one of my clients, went through a divorce as well. And so he was going through this experience. He was with his business. He was 50 something at the time, but he was ready to elevate his business again. His partner was quite against that idea. Like, no, our age, we need to settle down, slow down, I don't want to do it. Kids have moved out. It's time to do this. And he was like, no, that's not the life I want. And so for a long time, he held on to that marriage, but was so resentful of her. And it's like, and then he was like, but then I realized, it's not her fault. No. It's mine.
Yeah.
Because I could today walk up to him, I loved you. I did. We were together for a long time. It was amazing. Or maybe it wasn't. Whatever it was, I needed to go my own way. Because that's what's going to make me content with my life. And he accepted that despite it was her actions in the moment that were causing him to not elevate his business and go further with it again, it was actually overarching his inaction that was causing it. So it was him.
Yeah.
He is the reason. And that's it's not always that case, but a lot of the time it's what you do in a situation, what environment you put yourself in, that's going to make that impact as well.
I'm massive on, my kids ad nauseum hear it, but being accountable for your actions, so owning it, accepting it, sitting with it, processing it, doing whatever you're going to do, but don't let it be what stops you.
No.
We all have bad days, right? I have days where I'm starting to get a lot more honest as I get older, I guess, where I'm grumpy or I'm having a really bad mental health day, or I might miss a call from Sunshine or Levi, and I'll just message them back just saying, guys, love you, just not in a good headspace at the moment. Can we chat later? Rather than, answer the call and being grumpy and short with them and them going, Dad, what's wrong? I'm just trying to sort of own it and
accept it as well.
Accept it, and they then understand how I'm feeling. But overarching is I love you. I'm all good at the moment. I just need a little bit of breathing space.
And that's the thing, a hard thing. I probably didn't realise this until maybe a couple years ago, finishing school, probably maybe 4 or 5 years ago. My parents are pretty similar to me in the terms of they're a human too. your whole childhood, you forget. You're like, your parents are just, they have nothing.
Yeah.
You're like, no, it's mum and dad, they're fine. It's
Yeah,
all good.
yeah,
Now
yeah.
you're like, oh, he has bad days too. Mum has bad days too. Like
Yeah.
it's, oh fuck, I should probably be there for them as well. Like it's, that was a big wow moment for me. I was like, everything, like I look back, I'm like, how the hell they hold it together that well?
Extraordinary
For
what our
fuck's
parents
sakes,
go
like,
through,
like, but then same again for you. Like you've done that exact thing. Like you can compliment your parents, but you've done the same thing yourself. And you should be very happy and proud of that. Like it was not easy. And that's why I don't think, kids don't realize that sometimes ever, maybe. Some people don't. I'm very happy I did realize, and I can be very thankful for the shit my parents did for me. Like you just realize they're a human as well. So like you needing to take that little bit of space now that, your two kids are at the age where they can be more understanding of that. You tell a 16-year-old, I need some space, but they're like, no, I don't.
It's about me.
and you do, and as a parent, you have to then make it about them.
Yeah.
You do push yourself. Like you got to, maybe try and find the 20 minutes for yourself, if that's possible, because you're their schedule first, your schedule second, sort of thing as well. It's pretty amazing when you realise we're all pretty similar. That's all got feelings and emotions still, regardless.
And you're right, parents don't. I mean, I look back at my mum and what she would have gone through. You think, God, how did they smile or hug us or put food on the table? You just think it's extraordinary. You just bury a lot of stuff. I always say the kids both came and lived with me full-time for 2 years. I was working full-time, coaching a footy team. And I always describe that period of my life as I think I just had a mental breakdown standing up. Like it was just, I had
stress, anxiety.
I had to go.
Like
I had to go to work. I had to put food on the table for them. Probably could have ended up rocking in a corner, but I don't. I think I just put every day one foot in front of the other. But
you proved like that is what it is situation. It was fucking hard. Nothing you can do about it apart from the steps that you needed to take. Like you had, like you said, you had to put food on the table. So you almost didn't have time to really sit in it.
Yeah.
Your time was spent like making sure they maybe didn't see it and all those, and trying to provide for them and do all those things as well. It's the same, you didn't fall into a victim mindset. You're like, this is the cards in front of me right now.
Yeah.
I got to play them.
And unfortunately, what they would have seen is the stressed dad and the yelling dad and the dad cracking the shits and having tantrums dad, which is just, I think, not excusing it, but just the mental pressure looking back on it. I was just.
But they might also, they're likely to be more understanding now. Maybe a couple more years for Sunshine, getting into the workforce a little bit more and all those sort of things. But Levi's in it now. Like you can start to understand the stress of working, bills, all those sort of things. Once you start to feel that, you're like, hang on, this is just like sits here forever. It's not going anywhere. And that was a big change for me moving out of home now with my partner. We've got 2 dogs. I'm like, well, this is things that have to be paid for.
Yeah,
like
dog food's $30 a week, vet bills.
Yeah, that's it. So that cloud, whether there is actually a stress directly right now of being like, can I afford this? Can I do this? Whatever it is, regardless of that, it's a clouding sort of feeling of, I've got a baseline now I have to hit.
Yeah.
And if I'm not doing that, things start to go downhill.
Yeah.
That's a stress in itself that you just live with every day now.
Yeah, the carefree nature. I always say that, I was so carefree and wild and partied and did, lots of stuff and had lots of fun and great friendship group. I always feel like the day that stopped was when I got a mortgage. It's just your life just fundamentally changes.
Yeah.
You can't. And then obviously you have your first child and then your second child. Life just changes, right? You can't. And you're experiencing that as in pre-children, but you got 2 dogs, you got extra bills that you have to cover.
That's it. You have to do things now.
Yeah. I saw a really cool thing on the lots of benefits of social media. Obviously, there was can't remember, it was one of that was a podcast actually, and it was the quote that it was almost like a David Goggins type scenario, but it was if you train or open a business or do something in life like there's no plan B. That's a really, I kind of like that scenario because that's probably captures how I've started businesses or how I tackle things. Straight in. Just there is no plan B. Like when I opened the Lover Fighter company in the middle of a pandemic, I had no plan B. My mates are going, oh, what's your backup plan, man? You got some cash and, I said, dude, this is it. And they're like,
you can't have the mental, to put that energy into thinking what could come after this. No, I ain't got time. I don't have mental capacity to think what could come next. I got mental capacity only for what I have to make happen now. Yeah. After that, we'll deal with it then.
They and a lot of people that just shaking their head go, I don't understand what you're doing, like including my accountant, but other people as well. They sort of, they say, what are you doing? And I tell them, and they sort of have this awkward smile on their face, like, oh, really? Like now you're opening one. But to my head, I had no plan B. I had a rental property, and my rent's quite high, and the kids were a bit older, but still, you're still supporting them in some way.
Yeah.
Your car bills, all the stuff that everyone else has. But I couldn't go into that mentally with if this doesn't work, I'll just do that. I was like fucking balls, and I was in like.
I think I know, like, we live in Australia. There's an you always know you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty easy to land on your feet if things don't go well here, in comparison to obviously some places. That's not to say you're kind of feeling confident if you go to zero, but if you go to zero, you're like, I'm pretty confident I can rebuild from here. Because like you said, you go straight back into any other job. Like it's getting a job here is quite easy if you put some effort in, and you got a semi-decent track record, and regardless of a semi-decent track record, you could probably prove yourself and snap out of the bad habits of if you were a shit worker in the past. Like it's, so you'll be fine, but you don't plan to get to that stage.
No.
You plan like it's no. Because also that comes back to, I know it's a bit woo-woo, but manifesting and whatever, and seeing it, like you kind of have to step into that and really believe. If you're thinking of plan B, you don't believe you can actually do it.
No, and you're kind of half-assed about it, like it's hard to really put into context. I guess it does make sense the way I'm describing it in a pandemic, but also a streetwear shop on Jetty Road, Brighton, which is an upper socioeconomic area, which is a beach suburb of Adelaide. It has, the demographic is older. Like
it's not a street scene, is it?
It's not a street scene, right? I mean, yes, there's cream and elementary. There is younger people there, but it's not a street scene. It's not a cool Melbourne street.
Especially now people are, regardless of COVID pandemic, they're buying clothes online.
Yeah.
That in itself, you go shit. Then you go pandemic, you go shit.
Yeah.
And then you go in space with very different if you're in like hip scene in Melbourne sort of thing, like it's one of those alleyway sort of shops, and you're in and around that
cheap
sort of
rent,
coffee culture and all that sort of stuff. Like very different like that. There's like Adelaide in general, it's not that sort of culture anyway. No matter where, you probably couldn't find a pocket compared to maybe a Melbourne or Sydney. You could find a pocket where people are really into that hip hop sort of scene, like, and whether it's American rap or Aussie rap or whatever it is. Here, it's pretty hard to find.
No, and I'm selling Eminem t-shirts and Outcast t-shirts and books on dope and, like it was, and books on drugs and gangster rap, and like you just go soup.
80-year-old Julie comes in, she's like, oh, not for me.
And it turns out that one of my best customer groups was women over 80.
Really?
They were extraordinary how much money they'd spend in there, because they'd come in for their grandsons.
Yeah, okay.
Go, I've heard my grandson likes this Eminem character.
Don't read the books, okay?
And I had, Snoop Dogg's book, from crook to cook, and all of this, drug reference and stuff, and fuck you candles, and there was fuck written around the shop on books and paraphernalia everywhere. None of them ever complained.
No.
I used to sell so many fuck you candles with the finger up. So women over there, in their 80s, they just thought it was hilarious. And
I think it's just the world, like in general, people pretend to not like some of those things.
Yeah.
Like I always say, like it's some of the most successful, say James Smith, the PT. I don't know if you know who he is. Says cunt, says all these things, calls people fat, does all that. Majority of his clients are corporate people. What does that say about corporate people?
Yeah.
If you approached marketing and targeting those people in a corporate way, they probably wouldn't buy your product as much. But they're like, thank goodness, this guy's kind of like ripping the button-up shirt off at the end of the day. It's refreshing, and they love that because they're like, whoa, just can't, like he's not a tight ass. It's just really chill. It's laid back. Same sort of thing. Like these people, their whole life have probably felt like if they've gone through, the world's opened up a lot now into being able to be a little bit more of who you want to be, start the business you want to start in any sort of industry, whereas in the past, maybe it was dominated by big companies and they were very corporate based sort of in their upbringing. Now they're kind of like, oh, thank God I can loosen up a little bit. Like, I think that's just it. Most people are more open to that than we might realize.
And I think people the one thing that's probably taught me is we look at, I've been doing this a lot lately, looking at older people. So we look at 80-year-old people and go, sweet little old lady, she's conservative, she's this. But how the fuck, she might have been taking fucking mollies every week.
Yeah, you have no
She
idea.
absolutely loved her bangers. She might have been on the party scene. We don't.
Yeah.
She's got a journey and a story. I love talking to old people now.
Yeah. That's a lot of life to talk about.
There's a lot of life to talk about. And we see them in their cardigan and their pearls and their grey hair and go, oh, they've just super conservative. No.
Like, you're like, oh, you've never smoked dope before. You're like,
Yeah.
You know, the amount of parents you talk to or whatever, like, it was much more prevalent than we probably realised as well. Like, you know,
and they've lived
all
through
those
the
sort of things.
70s, which was just free love and drugs. And I mean, they've been through all of that. So probably explains why a lot of them used to come in the shop and buy the stuff.
Yeah.
With the word fuck on it, because they just thought it was hilarious. But that's definitely a phase I'm going through back in hospo now, because there's a lot of, in the Thai restaurant, there's a lot of customers probably over that 70 age group that are locals, and they tell me rude jokes, and I love connecting with old people.
Yeah, well, the barriers are dropped. I don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
Like, when you finish working, you're like, what's going to happen? You're going to change my resume?
Yeah.
I don't care. It
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
matter. Like, it's so different. So it's interesting. Yeah. So what, like, obviously you're big in the hip hop scene though. When that come about? Were you into that when you were younger as well?
Yeah, I think for me, I think with my upbringing, I instantly connected. So I was 15. So it all started with the Beastie Boys, NWA, Public Enemy, that era, which, and I would have been, I was 15. And I instantly connected it because I became, I think with that background and the domestic violence and I felt like I didn't fit in anywhere. And I was
on the cheeky bad boy, so it's like you're like,
like, cheeky, With
some of the things they're saying, you like resonates with how your brain thinks and all those sort of things.
I became a non-conformist. I didn't want to conform to not so much society but rules, and it's probably stuff.
Explains the entrepreneurship.
That's right.
Yeah.
So hip hop to me, you think about Australia that long ago. It was, I mean, hip hop was brand new, pretty well anywhere in the world at that stage. But they were non-conformists, right? So you've got, I mean, not so much the Beastie Boys. You know, they were, I guess, three Jewish guys.
Yeah.
So they weren't. But it was more the NWA and Public Enemy that I started to resonate with me, because even though their message was "fuck the police," the message got through to me is like it was more the system. It was like fuck the system.
Like go your own way.
Go your
rather
own
than
way.
follow the
Yeah.
path of,
Fight the power. You know, all of the messages that they had, and that resonated with me. And being a teenage non-conformist, I just attached myself to hip hop as rebellious. You know, I wore it as a badge of honor. And you got to understand, hip hop back then, it was, the government were trying to ban it. Like they were.
It was more rebellious than anything.
100%. They had NWA had a song called "Fuck the Police." I mean, what do you think the US government are doing? They're trying to shut them down. Eminem comes out and he's, he got.
That's it. The culture was very anti what they wanted.
Yeah.
Especially as soon as you start bringing in, drugs, all those sort of things. The government's anti that, and they see the rise in people using those things because it's now cool and all those sort of things.
Glorifying violence. And Eminem obviously had his Slim Shady character, but some of his lyrics, you look back now and you go, they were full on, like really full on lyrics.
As a young person, you just sing along. You don't really read between the lines.
Don't read between the lines. He referencing his own domestic violence stuff, but it was done through a character. Which sort of made it get through. But he had the FBI trying to, knocking on his door. Like the hip rappers back then were considered really bad, and the government were basically trying to shut them down. Like the situation with 1-4 in Australia.
Yeah.
But so to me it was non-conforming, it was rebellious, it was playing it loud, and, there's me going fight the power, which had nothing to do with me because I wasn't
you
black.
didn't really understand like the internal, but you resonated. You kind of created your own story, based on what they were talking about. You kind of brought their words and applied it to your circumstances and twisted it a little bit.
Eminem, he became my favourite because he was white and he was angry.
Well, that's it.
So that
he stood out as well.
He stood out, right? So he had, I guess this is why Eminem just brought hip hop to the masses, right? Because there's a whole lot of angry white kids, especially white males. Me, pent up anger from
You're like, that's me.
What I'd seen in my life, and that was burning in me, and that's me, And he was from Detroit, and he was, from a caravan, all that stuff. Was his story the same as mine? No, but it resonated with me, definitely.
So I feel like as soon as you could pull one thing from it, you're in. You're like, okay,
100%.
Some of the things he's saying in these songs and whatever he's going through right now, I'm like, it's lights are switching on. You're like, that. I feel that, and it's interesting. The hip hop scene now, not as good as it used to be.
Do you know what? I was very until Levi will deny it, but I swear he loves hip hop because of me. But he'll say it was his own journey, but that's fine.
Yeah, you'll leave him to figure it out.
But his knowledge and depth of knowledge of hip hop is quite extraordinary. To be honest, it's beyond me because I'm hyperactive extrovert. My brain doesn't allow me to go overly deep. His brain allows him to go super deep.
You bounce too quickly. You're like, as soon as you go, you're
the word phonics? I'm all about the sound, and he'll go, "Oh, Dad, Kendrick's dropped that new song. Have you listened to the lyrics? They're incredible." He tells, and I'm like, "Oh, and I like the sound of it," And then I'll eventually get into the lyrics.
Yeah.
So he started, I think when he was 15, he started to get into he's called Kanye back then. I was super dismissive, like fucking idiot. And then he got into Kendrick. So they're rapper. Like Kendrick's obviously a lyricist, and incredible. Kanye's arguably the best producer there's been.
I feel like you just got to be picky with American rap at the moment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
There's a lot of shit.
Well, you kind of go, do they auto-tune massively? That generally buckets away a lot of them. And then you're like, they're pretty shit. Like you got when you go through the phase of like Lil Pump and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. As soon as they put Lil in front of the name, you're like, probably push them to the side a little bit. But you do, like your Kendricks, what does he call himself now? Yee or something like that.
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
And,
well, I was so closed off to that, right? So I was, here's me stuck in the, Jay-Z, Outkast, Eminem, like Beastie Boys. So I was stuck in the sort of 90s, 2000, and I was so dismissive. No, anything after that, Ye's a dickhead. No, who's Kendrick Lamar, whatever. And then Levi chipped away at me and he goes, listen to this album. And again, ego, no, I'm the hip-hop dad. I went, holy shit.
It's pretty good.
Wow. And then I started going deep into it. And then
especially Kendrick, like
I was like, holy shit.
J. Cole, all those, so that sort of,
I remember Sunshine came home at 13 crying because, X-Temptation had died. And I'm like, oh, fucking who's he, whatever. Oh, yeah, dude with the face tats. And I was like, there was a lot of teenage girls in Australia that were really upset by that. And I was like,
one of my buddies from school actually came in crying.
Yeah, I was like, who's X? And then I thought, oh, no, out of respect for Sunshine, I need to. And I went, holy shit. I still rate him as one of the most talented. He was extraordinary.
I think it's the better. It's not even just about sound. Like if you don't listen properly, you feel what they're saying as well. And I think he resonated with a lot of young people. Back to what we were saying before, because they felt very similar to him.
Yeah,
like this feeling of being like a little bit lost, and misguided, maybe, depressed
and super
anxious,
deep,
whatever. That's a lot for a 14-year-old to be listening to. Which is an interesting one. Like, it feels like music doesn't have any like limit on what you can listen to, but like movies, you can't.
I know there's all these ratings.
15 plus, but a 12-year-old can listen to "Fuck the Police" and whatever.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Okay,
yeah. So that was my journey. I went from super closed off to my kids teaching me that okay, there's other stuff out there, and now I've just got this incredible appreciation for love Eminem, always will, but barely listen to him because I've consumed thousands of hours of him. So now I spend more time consuming stuff. Like I still listen to a lot of, like I love Jay-Z. He's
it never gets old.
Probably he's probably my favorite now. Like I feel like he's the godfather of hip hop. But listen to a lot more Ye. Listen to people like Dave, and I'm really enjoying UK hip hop at the moment.
I reckon that's why I asked, because I personally I think minus your names, your Kendrick, J. Cole's, maybe you still throw. I mean, Post Malone's not really rap sort of thing, but that kind of like scene in the group there, I'm like UK rap. I think is outperforming.
Phenomenal at the moment.
It's so cool.
Yeah, Dave, Stormzy, I love.
He's coming to Adelaide soon, I think.
Yeah.
Next year. I was like, might have to get a ticket to that, yeah.
And I'd said to you, again, this is me with the closed off nature too. I remember being 12 months into the shop and refused to listen to UK hip hop.
Yeah.
They don't know fucking hip hop. They got no story data. I think
especially because you listen to Aussie and you're like, they're just going to be another bunch of Aussies. They don't sound that good. Like no one's going to like them.
And then a customer came in. Levi was chipping away at me a little bit and with the UK hip hop. And then this customer said, have you heard this guy called Dave? And I'd heard Levi mention him. I'm like, Dave, what's the name's Dave for a fucking rapper, right? Like,
yeah, you went from 50 Cent, Jay-Z,
Dave. A massive 50 Cent.
Sounds like dude that owns the fish shop.
Yeah. I'm like, oh. And he said, mate, give him a listen. So the guy left and I thought, I'll put some Dave on. And I just went, holy shit. And I rang Levi and Levi was like, I told you.
So now from here on out, you need to listen to Levi earlier.
So then I've gone down the Dave and the Gets and I listen to a much lesser degree, Central C, which I don't think he's an over talented rapper, but phonically he's kind of fun.
I think he's more down the kind of like the American auto tune sort of like it's gimmicky, fad. It won't last so long. Whereas these other guys like a Dave, you're going to listen to him for 15 years.
Mate, deep.
Like
he's heavy.
It'll come, but that's kind of like once again you said X. That was just deep music.
Yeah,
and I listened to it as well. But I think also it's appreciating art in general.
Yeah.
Like I know, like personally, I could listen to. I don't give a shit if it's like Taylor Swift or whatever. Like if it's a talented artist, has a talented voice, it's amazing. Same with movies. Like I'm just recently, like I think movies is where I've really appreciated the art of movies, especially watching like say like a Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah.
With the latest Batman, Oppenheimer, going back and watching like Interstellar and all those things, you start to appreciate the art of movies, music, even like tattoos and things like that as well. Like, probably when you were growing up, if you got a tattoo, you're a bikie.
Fuck, mate.
Your parents would be like, "You're fucked. You're going to be in jail in like 6 months." Now it's kind of like that's art, that's culture. That's
tattoos
were not frowned upon, apart from maybe still corporate world to some extent. Like if you're a lawyer, you probably But other than that, no one cares.
I remember getting I got a yin yang and a smiley face, tiny little, and they cost me $10 on my lunch break on Rundle Street. And an old this guy. He used to drink Jack Daniels while he was tattooing an old school biker, and I was like, my parents were like, my God, he's on the, I was already off the rails, he started, and then I got a little one here and a little one there. And you're right, it was pretty well, I mean, people were starting to, but it was generally just a bogan thing. The generation before you, right, it was bikers and criminals. There was, like I did some research on my grandfather, and he fought in World War I, and I found his original document that he, signed up for the war, and he had tattoos, in 1915, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, my man.
Yeah.
Runs in the family.
Because if he had tattoos 110 years ago, I'm assuming he was a little bit rough around the edges, right? Because that just wasn't a thing.
It must have been like home done as well. Like there's no tattoo shops probably.
And he was from Broken Hill, so I'm assuming it was probably home job. So I remember reading that, with a sense of pride. But
isn't that pretty crazy though as well? Like you can start to see. It's like people say like you're more like your parents than you probably realize as well. Like it's that generational kind of like he was likely a bit rigid, a bit rough around the edges, and then you're like, that's me as a kid, and you lean into that, and then you're like, holy shit, like closer to my family and further down the track than you actually realize as well. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
and now I'm going. I had a daddy-daughter tattoo date. Which seems surreal because my father's extreme. He's really conservative, PAC boy, and came from, my grandfather was a doctor and he was adopted. So I always said there's two sides to my family. Mum was working class, worked in the mines at Broken Hill. Grandfather with tattoos, and then there's that kind of prep yuppie side. And I absolutely am connected to the working class side, which I wear with a huge sense of honour because I love that working class side. To think all these years later, I've literally taken Sunshine to one of my tattooists and said, "I'll buy your first 3," because obviously young girls are getting the smaller ones. So I got a small one there. She said, "Will you get one with me?" I said, "Yeah, whatever. I'm happy to put it in my skin. I'm fine."
It's not like it's your first one, so it's not a problem.
There we were. There's at the time with my 19-year-old daughter getting a tattoo. Now, if you'd said that, when you're holding your little baby 20 years ago, no, that's not happening. And it was just a beautiful moment. Like it's, I'd love to, I'm trying to talk Levon into getting a small one. Not that anyone has to have a tattoo, of course, that's ridiculous. But there was something special about that moment, about the freedom of parenting and not having boundaries and rules and not conforming. Like that's not that many daughters would probably get to do that with their dad. I didn't have to talk her into it, by the way. She asked me to get tattoos. It's not like, you're fucking good at it.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I think that's the world now, isn't it? Like we can wear a bit more what we want, be a bit more who you are. Like it's, even you've coloured your hair. Imagine doing that as a bloke 50 years ago.
Oh mate, the words you'd be called. Yeah, you'd be beaten up.
But now that's accepted. It doesn't matter. Like, and rightfully so, because it's you want to. Who cares? Like, and it also at the same time, like probably the big thing 50 years ago was like, you're feminine or whatever. But now it's not even seen as that. Like, it's not even the fact of accepting you coloured your hair and that's a feminine thing. It's not even just that. It's kind of like, who cares? It doesn't mean anything. It's kind of like, it's just what they want.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously people generally do these things to portray themselves in a certain way. Like if you color your hair green or something, like you're probably not doing, that's the person you are, and it has some meaning behind it. Same with tattoos. Like you get tattoos that mean something to you, or you thought the art was cool. There's always meaning, but people are just more accepting of that.
And
that's your meaning.
I grew up in an area where if you wore pink, you were called gay. If you wore an earring in I can't remember. I think it was your right ear that meant you were gay. Like I was
even around when I was in school.
Was it?
Still.
Yeah, right.
People would be like, "Oh, you got it in the wrong ear."
Yeah. And guys would get bashed for purely being gay, even when I was in school. You just think horrendous to think of. But that's the era. I mean, I'm not that old, but that's how much we've changed in a generation.
The thing. Yeah, it's not. I mean, shit. It wasn't that long ago that gay marriage in Australia was illegal.
Yeah.
So you can see how quickly. If people move together in whatever it is, whatever topic, like if we come together, you can move so quickly with things as well.
Yeah.
I think that's the power of voicing yourself. Like I have sometimes, like, I don't know whether it's just this whole, like the person I am, I want to, change the world sort of thing. I fucking like any opportunity I can to have a positive conversation with someone, any opportunity I can, like to envision. I'm like, oh, if we did this in schools, you could do, I don't know, whatever it is. I really love to do it. And a lot of people are like, oh, it doesn't matter, just leave it, let it slide. I'm like, no, it does matter. Letting things slide is why you get nowhere. Do you think like any impact that's happened in the past was just from letting things slide? Like no, it started with someone making a voice, and then other people going, I've been feeling that way the whole time. It's like the first person to ask a question in class, and then everyone else puts their hand up.
Yeah,
we're all sheep. So it takes someone to take the step forward. Like I'm big on, like at the moment, the concern. My big concern is with, say, a cashless society or something. That's a big thing, and I've had people, Jordan, let it go. Who cares? They're going to do it either way. I'm like, well, whether that personally, that's something that's important to me. I'm not just going to let it go. I'll have the conversations. I'll be open-minded again to both sides of why it might be good and why it might be bad. But if you don't say anything, that's where things don't change.
Yeah, I love that saying, the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. And everyone who knows me would know I'm pretty socially conscious and, like I said, get called a feminist and stuff. And when I worked in radio, our sales director was this massive South African ex-professional rugby union player. He's 130 kilos, built like an absolute fucking brick shit, like intimidating dude. Like,
look at him and you go, man.
Yeah, like just an enormous human being. And I was sitting in the creative writer's office once, and he walked in, talking about the words of an ad, and I said, "That's a bit gay, isn't it?" I remember looking at him and going, "This is the moment, right? Do I walk past that?"
Are you a bystander or?
Yeah. So here's me standing there, does the size matter? I think it does, like 80 kilos, 130 kilos, and he's my superior.
Yep. And so there's a bit of a process to go past mentally.
And I just looked at him and said, "Rick, I'm not cool with that, man." And he went, "What do you mean?" I said, the way you've used gay, and I wasn't trying to be woke, it was like, that's patronising. Because in that context, gay is lesser. It's not the word
itself. Yeah. It's just you're linking a negative with that term.
With a gay person. So I said, the context that you use that, you're saying gay is lesser, and and he looked at me and he went, "Fuck, Benny, bang on."
That's the thing, like,
I'm owning that.
But if no one said anything, he's just going to say it again, say it again. And that's the the powerful part for him was he probably didn't mean anything bad by it.
He didn't. I'm sure he didn't.
Like that's where sometimes people just say things, and that's where we can be a little accepting and forgiving of what he said. Well, if he turned around and said, "Fuck you," you'd be like, "Well, I'm not going to be forgiving now of what you said because you clearly meant it with you had some malice behind that." But he took it on the chin,
and he's
willing to change.
And he apologised. Not that he need to apologise for me, but he said, "Boys, out of line, I'm sorry."
But you don't know, someone in that room may have been nervous to come out.
Yeah. And could have been me, could have been the other guy, Could have been my child, it could have been my friend. And he was the loveliest guy. And he absolutely believe he didn't mean anything by it. But I'm assuming to this day, he's in that moment, he won't do it again, I'm assuming.
No, exactly.
But context is important. Like, it was about the patronising nature of it. So, yeah.
All right, perfect. We might wrap things up there. That's been good.
Mate.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. Great chat.
Man.
I'm sure we'll speak in the future. Thank you.